Welcome into Dolphins Today by Chat Sports. We have a lot of news to discuss, and all of it is positive. How about that for a change? We got great news on a defensive player revolving his status for Thursday's game against the Ravens. We also have a little bit of an update on Jonah Savianaya as well as Dee Eskridge. We are currently 69 subscribers, nice, away from 77K. Subscribe and let's get there on today's show. But I wanted to quickly look at the initial Dolphins injury report that came late Monday afternoon. Why? Well, remember, Thursday night game, injury reports come out earlier, and we had 5 DNPs and 1 limited. No surprises with Eskridge and Davis, who left Sunday's game with an injury. Duck obviously is out for the year. Julian Hill missed the game on Sunday. But the one that was the biggest surprise was Bradley Chubb, the edge rusher. He was listed as someone who was a DNP. They did not actually practice. It was a projection because it was just a walkthrough and meeting day. But he had a shoulder and foot injury, and this raised a lot of eyebrows. Well, the great news here is that he will be ready to go for the Thursday night football game in Week 9 against the Ravens. The foot and shoulder injury won't be a concern. He actually was asked about his injuries. He said that he'll be good. It's just one of those things. You've got a short week. Things flare up from the game before. You just want to make sure you get on it and correct it. Now, it is very pivotal and important that Bradley Chubb is healthy for multiple reasons. Well, the obvious one, and the first one, is that he can play for the Dolphins this upcoming Thursday. Because if he would be inactive, it would rely on Bradley Chubb, Chop Robinson and Matthew Judon to fill in for Bradley Chubb. We know Jalen Phillips is going to get obviously most of that work, and you would imagine Cameron Good or Quentin Bell would fill in as that fourth edge rusher with Judon and Chop getting moved up. But it's also very pivotal that he is healthy for the Dolphins because of the November 4th trade deadline. We are exactly 1 week away from the trade deadline day in the National Football League. Chubb has been mentioned as one of the top trade candidates at that deadline as the Dolphins continue to struggle and teams always go after pass rushers. Well, if he's hurt, teams likely aren't going to trade for him, and if they do, it would likely not be really any good value coming back to Miami. So if he is good and healthy, that will help Miami not only in the game on Thursday, but also potentially trading him more easily and getting a better pick in return. And we're going to talk about trading him more in depth here in a second. But I want you to predict it for me in the comments section. 1 week from now would be past the trade deadline on Thursday or Tuesday afternoon. Is he on the roster past that November 4th, 4 p.m. Eastern deadline? Type Y for yes or N for no. You have to project Chubb as the most likely trade candidate for Miami, whether it's him or Jalen Phillips, because of his age, his contract, and the fact Miami is struggling. And teams will obviously eye his production and say, 4 sacks through 8 games, forced fumble, 7 QB hits. This is a guy that we might want to go after to add some depth to our pass rushing unit. Well, if you're Miami, you're like, okay, we're willing to do that because he's probably not on the roster next year. I'll explain why here in a second. But also, these production numbers aren't the whole story. He has not been that good in terms of advanced analytics, pass rush win rate, total pressures forced. Jalen Phillips has significantly been better than Bradley Chubb. And I think Jalen Phillips would be the player on this Dolphins roster most opposing teams will actually call about over Bradley Chubb. But due to Chubb's age and contract, it makes sense for Miami to potentially deal him. And I mentioned the contract a couple times here over the last minute or so. Well, here is the information. Currently, Bradley Chubb's cap hit for Miami is $12.3 million. If the Dolphins trade him, the dead cap, it just remains about the same. It's $12.5. And the new team that acquires Bradley Chubb as of this week, if they did deal for the veteran, would only have about $1 million cap hit. So for teams looking to add a pass rusher, Bradley Chubb makes a ton of sense for this season because they would only have to add $1 million to their books. Now, it gets a little bit more complicated in the future, specifically for Miami. Bradley Chubb currently has a $31 million cap hit in 2026. If you trade him at the deadline, you will now have a dead cap in 2026 of $23.8 million. So you're only saving $7.4 million next season. So you're paying a guy, Bradley Chubb, who you trade at the deadline, $23.8 million to not play for your team. Now, he is not going to play on that $31 million cap hit that he's currently scheduled to have next season. But my thing is with trading Bradley Chubb is that it's really hard to justify trading him for a like 6th or 7th round pick, right? Like, why would you openly take on a $23.8 million dead cap to get a 6th round pick? If you're able to get a mid to early day 3 pick, so 4th, 5th round, all right, maybe we could have a discussion about that, but it's not really justifiable to deal him away for a 6th or 7th, which in the grand scheme of things are pretty meaningless for the most part, and have that $23.8 million dead cap. Especially when you factor in how much you could save if you just wait until June 2nd of 2026. Like, it makes more sense to wait till the offseason. Miami could do one of two things in the offseason. They could either trade him or release him post June 1st 1 designation. If they do that, they actually save $20.2 million in cap space. If they do that, they would then just have a $10.9 million dead cap for next season. Obviously, that is about $12.9 million less than the dead cap hit you would face if you traded him now or traded/cut him pre-June 1st after this season. The point I'm trying to make in all of this by showing you the financials and speaking on it is that one, Bradley Chubb won't be here next season, and although he is the subject of a lot of trade rumors on this Dolphins football team, unless a team offers a 5th round pick, I find it incredibly unlikely Miami actually deals him away. Because in this day and age, you see the pick swaps where it's like, oh, we'll trade you a 6th round pick and we get a Bradley Chubb and a 7th round pick from you. No, like, if I'm trading Bradley Chubb due to the cap situation, I'm going to need a 5th round pick straight up. And I'm not saying Bradley Chubb is worth a 5th round pick. I actually don't think he is. But that is from a financial viewpoint why I think Miami would likely need a 5th round pick, because there is no point of taking on that dead cap to just get a pick in the 200s or 190s. It just doesn't make a lot of sense for Miami when they could have much more space and save a lot more money by doing the same thing just next June in 2026, especially with a new regime coming in at head coach and GM in all likelihood. More updates coming here, but this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. The football action is reaching its pinnacle, and it's even better on Prize Picks. The weather is changing, but the feeling of being right never gets old. Keep the season rolling on Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. Prize Picks is so simple to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. They offer stacks, meaning you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. Want to pick more on Devon Achane fantasy score, receptions, and touchdowns? Well, now you can, all in the same lineup, only on Prize Picks. I have an entry in for Thursday Night Football between Miami and Baltimore. More than City for the power play, in my opinion. Derrick Henry rushing yards, Mark Andrews receiving yards. Dolphins are not very good against tight ends. And more than Ollie Gordon rushing yards, as he gets into the offense a lot. And the Ravens' run defense is certainly a part where they struggle. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. We mentioned the good news on Bradley Chubb on how he's going to be ready to go this game on Thursday. So will Dee Eskridge. He told reporters that he'll be fine and he'll be out there against the Ravens, which is a little bit of a surprise because he left the game against Atlanta with that shoulder injury around halfway through, was questionable to return, but did not. Mike McDaniel said in his Monday press conference that Eskridge is day-to-day, and it would be very much up in the air if he'll be able to turn it around and play on a short week. Well, I said on a video yesterday, and actually this morning, that I do not expect him to be on the field Thursday, and I would start preparing for Ollie Gordon to be that kick returner and Taj Washington to be wide receiver 6. Well, evidently that's not the case. Very good to not disrupt status quo, because although I would be fine with Ollie Gordon on kickoff returns, that would have been too high-profile pieces on the Dolphins offense returning kicks. Ollie Gordon, your RB2, and Malik Washington, your wide receiver 2, and slot guy. Well, if one of those two got hurt on kick returns, that would hurt you significantly in the way you use your personnel when you're on offense. So good that Dee Eskridge is going to be able to play and fill that kick return role so you don't have both Ollie Gordon and Malik Washington returning kicks. Tua Tagovailoa dealt with that eye injury this last Sunday, wore a visor for the first time in his career, and Visor Tua is here to stay. He said that he will continue to wear the visor despite the eye issue going away. He said the swelling has went down significantly. He said he can see much better today than he could on Sunday, which is honestly impressive that he was able to play one of his best games of his career and certainly the best game of the season with an eye injury where he had vision impaired at least to some degree. And the teammates in Miami, they love the visor. We've seen multiple players come out and say publicly they hope Tua continues to wear the visor. That is so fascinating to me that someone who maybe created a little bit of a rift in the locker room by his comments after the Chargers game now is almost rallying the team together to a degree on offense with the visor. Listen, if he's going to play like he did on Sunday, 6 incompletions on 26 attempts, 4 touchdowns, 138 QB rating, hell yeah, I hope he wears the visor every game too, because Dolphins offense looked really, really good. I did want to quickly mention Jonas Savionaya, by the way. Frank Smith, the offensive coordinator who was on the sideline, said he was the one who sparked Jonah's rant and war chant after the game in the locker room. If you didn't see on social media, it was quite the video. Frank Smith being on the sideline continues to be a difference. And I also did want to share this as well. Mike McDaniel at his Tuesday press conference, used to saying Wednesday, said that Zach Wilson will be the QB2 going forward. And it's just such an odd situation. Like, they go the first 6 weeks with Zach Wilson as the backup every week. Then, before week 7 against the Browns, you randomly say, oh, Wilson's inactive. Quinn Ewers is the backup, with Wilson being the emergency QB. Then McDaniel says it's going to be a week-to-week competition in practice to see who the backup is. They go back to Zach Wilson, and now McDaniel announces that for the betterment of competition for the current standpoint, Zach Wilson's going to be the backup for further notice and for the rest of the year. Like, I just don't, was Zach Wilson goofing off in practice? Like, did they need to just give him a, slap in the ass or something to get him motivated again with playing Quinn Ewers? Like, I was so confused on what motivated Miami to have Quinn Ewers as the backup against Cleveland and then go right back to Zach Wilson for the rest of the year. Don't understand it, but wanted to provide that update on Zach Wilson being back to his role as QB2. We'll round out the show by talking about Lamar Jackson. We mentioned it this morning, but he is going to officially return to the football field this Thursday against the Dolphins because hashtag, of course he is, that he's out for a month and then the one game he returns is against Miami. Feels like it's always like that. But Lamar Jackson spoke to the media for the first time in a while since his injury. He says that he feels great and he is 100%. He was asked about potential rust. He says that's what practice is for. Former league MVP, certainly has had his successes against the Miami Dolphins. Has played the Dolphins 4 times in his career, spanning since he was a rookie and second-year guy in 2019. Man, these numbers are scary. 14 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown. So he's got 15 total touchdowns against Miami compared to 1 interception. He averages 300 passing yards a game, a QB rating of 142.7, and he also tallies about 50 rush yards per game. So on a 4-game average against the Dolphins, I know going against Brian Flores and different defensive schemes throughout the career of Lamar, but averaging about 3.5 touchdowns a game and 350 yards per game. Going to be in for your toughest task of the season. We already know this Dolphins defense isn't very good. Now, it did have its best performance of the year against the Kirk Cousins-led Falcons. They bottled up Bijan Robinson. Will they be able to do the same against the 2-time MVP Lamar Jackson and dangerous running back Derrick Henry? I don't anticipate them able to stop the run or this offense that, when healthy, is a high-octane flying offense. But boy, oh boy, is it going to be a tough one for Miami. All right, I'll do it for this episode. We'll be back tomorrow with 2 videos as we get you ready for Thursday night football. Dolphins, Ravens in Miami. Subscribe and join us for that watch party.